Hello and welcome to LupinRecap versus PatReview, the podcast that's stirring up a storm. I am your host, Lokomasi, and with me is my lovely co-host, Fefner Masamune.
Legit question for the Pat Rangers. How do you kill 30 to 50 feral Potamen that run into Japan within 3 to 5 minutes while the Lupin Rangers are trying to retrieve the collection piece?
And we are Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger recap and review podcast.
I might not be timely, but I do keep people on their toes.
Today, we are covering episode 38. But before that, there's something we sort of have to address. It's been rearing its ugly head for episodes now, and this is the episode where it really clinches it. So I want to talk about imbalances in character development. This is the situations where some characters get a lot of development and some characters don't get any at all. To start, pick any Final Fantasy game. Final Fantasy picks favorites every time.
Yep.
I think the only one that doesn't pick favorites is 5.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say.
If anyone, Bartz gets shafted on that one, and that's interesting because he's the de facto protagonist.
Yeah, but he's just the Wanderer while everybody else has their character development. His was mostly done before the game began.
Speaking of that, 5 is my favorite, but I'm going to talk about 9 because I finished it more recently, so I'm more aware of it. 9 has 2 really glaring characters that just drop off, or don't even do much to begin with, I should say. And they are Amarant and Kina. Some might argue Freya. I think the Freya stuff just gets resolved really quickly. She does do stuff, it's just early on.
Well, that is the problem with most of the Final Fantasy characters, then, because that's what happens to pretty much everyone. Your problem's done disc 1, just pal around with the heroes now.
But Amarant and Kina have the problem where they're just stuff that doesn't really happen. Like, Amarant gets a very small amount of backstory, and they never really go back to that. Like, I don't think Zidane ever really learns who Amarant even is.
He might if Amarant told him, and Zidane listened. They just sat down and had an actual conversation and listened to one another. Their problems would be solved.
Freya just offhandedly mentions that Amarant used to be a security guard, and Zidane just, slams his fist on the table. I knew I recognized that face! That was bugging me for so long.
Knew he looked like a cop. It's not the same thing, Zidane.
So Amarant, I think, is interesting because they try and have his lack of character development be a point. The one thing he learns through the game, it just happens. It could have happened at any point past his introduction. It wasn't like it wasn't foreshadowed. But the inciting incident for it is just I've been with this group of goody-goods too long, and I'm getting sick of it.
I think friendship is dumb, and I'll prove it.
Yeah, it could have happened after, the first dungeon you recruit him.
Oh no, in fact, friendship is not dumb. Guess I'll hang around.
But I mentioned Kina because we talked earlier about them and how they seem to have just, they've got everything figured out beforehand.
Yep.
Everyone's on a quest to find, themselves and their place in this world, and Kina's I figured that one out years ago.
Yeah, Kina's good.
I need to go learn the specifics, but, I got it.
Gotta go eat stuff.
Just gonna go wander around the world. Surviving everything.
I need to find a dragonfly and just stuff it into my gullet.
But something I didn't know when we talked about this, because I didn't do the frog catching side quest because life's too short. When you finish it, well, quote unquote finish, you can keep doing it and get 99 frogs, and you have to fight Kina's boss, or their master, Quail, I think. There's only 3 Qs, and I get them mixed up outside of Kina. After you beat Quail, Quail's master, Quan, God, shows up and basically says, stop taking your frustration out on Kina. You're the one that needs to change. Kina's fine. Kina's perfect. Kina knows exactly how to be a gourmand. You're the one that has these insecurities, and you're making Kina pay for them. Stop it.
They do what they want. You have a problem?
So yeah, that was a case where Kina's lack of changing is done on purpose. Because, like we've said, they figured it out before the game even really started. And the fact that they don't have to change is part of what little character arc they get, because people are trying to force change onto them when they don't have to. The thing is, as far as characters that have their character arc done before the start of the game, my list is Kina and Uncle Iroh. Iroh has a similar thing, but on like a much grander scale and more like emotionally devastating.
That being said, Iroh does have some developments, but they're all muscle, baby.
Also, hold on. Iroh's screwing around with tea for the entire first season and a good chunk of the second. How different is that from Kina's gourmand quest? If Kina just spoke in like proper grammatical English, they would just be Iroh. Unfortunately, we don't get the scene where Kina's thrown in jail and spends several months bulking up. They throw off their apron and they're just ripped underneath.
They don't even need it. Blue magic is broken. They just do it because.
No, that's the twist. They get the guards to level up until they get from level 34 to 35. And then Kina just murders every guard at once with the same spell.
So, I don't have a specific example today, but of course I would like to remind the audience of that good old English lesson that you probably took, static characters and dynamic characters. It's okay for static characters to exist in stories, because you can't have I guess you could have a story with all dynamic characters, but that would be exhausting to both the writer and the audience, unless there's like 2 characters or something. But if you've got characters, it's good to have people who are just, anchors. They can change a little bit. They obviously have to interact with the story still, but they don't have to go through a grand change to be important to the story and likable and whatnot. And in fact, sometimes you do need that.
When you mention like every story needs static characters, the first thing that jumped into my mind was 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors. Because that comes pretty close to not having static characters, but they still have the Ninth Man.
That guy
3
sucks.
spoiler characters that I'm not going to talk about.
Look, if you've played half an hour of 999, you know that he sucks. Half an hour, which is like, I don't know, the introduction to the story.
Yeah, like everyone with a name changes. Except, now that I'm thinking about it, because I've been trying to think about this while recording, and that's why I'm changing my mind a lot. I guess Lotus doesn't change that much, but the audience's perception of her does, and that's what threw me off.
Lotus voice, I'm in.
I'm a mother, and I love my children. Also, I'm in. I might have to put up a picture of Lotus just so people know like how ridiculous these lines are, given her character design. This is a hacker and a mother of 2 children.
Really makes you think. We all regret our words and deeds now.
God, I don't want to fucking talk about that. Let's...
Okay, so I guess in that case we'll move on to episode 38, the collection piece from outer space. Really not leaving any room for ambiguity here. We know what we're going in for. We begin by candlelight tonight. Degranio is enjoying yet another glass of wine when he is approached by Destra. Zamigo is also in the room, much to Destra's disappointment. However, Zamigo has some very important intel, so he'll have to suck it up. Degranio asks Destra if his safes are empty, and they are, and we're not privy to any other part of this conversation other than a chuckle from Zamigo. We then cut to space, where we see a collection piece in orbit just above a satellite. Between Hell and space, there is Jur, and today the cops are enjoying some coffee and or tea. Kaitro looks to Kairi, who looks sad while doing something on his phone. Kaitro walks over to him and asks him if he's playing some cool games on there.
何か面白いゲームでもやってるのか
This is the best scene in the whole show.
Dad Kaitro is here.
It's like equal parts Dad Keijiro and obnoxious little cousin. You got any games on your phone?
He just has the most genuine, warm smile on his face. I love it.
I can't imagine anyone asking that question in earnest except for Keijiro, and that's why I can't handle it.
I paused on the frame of his smile, and because I had to go remind Loke of that scene when I got back to it, and then I just turned back to my computer and died.
I'll have to find that exact frame and put up a picture of the most genuine smile.
Kairi just blows him off by telling him that he'll tell him for 1,000,000 yen. Tsukasa and Sakia discuss Kaichiro's flawed methods when Noel makes an entrance. Unlike Goody, he does not wander in. He is present. You will know it. He tries to join the others, but Tsukasa and Sakia stand up because they have a meeting that Noel had not heard about. According to Kaichiro, it's classified information for the Japanese brand. Noel doesn't take it personally, though. After all, he's done the same thing to them. Kairi, though, notes the ridge between him and the rest of the cops. Tuma says that he may be putting too much focus on helping the thieves, but Noel assures them that they need to assemble the Lupin collection. Elsewhere, Sakia mentions that they don't know what the meeting's about either. But suddenly, the group is alerted to a nearby Ganglar attack. With no time to waste on important meetings, the cops rush off to the scene. In the meantime, the intro plays. When that's over, tempura missiles. Sure, yeah, that works. The cops rush in and find that not one, but 2 Ganglars are there. Sakia calls them both shrimp, but neither of them are, and they're mad he'd even suggest such a thing. One introduces himself as Janaku Sasa, and the other as Isolab Starfredo. Most importantly, though, they are best friends. Childhood friends who love to raise hell, to be specific.
Finally, another Ganglar team-up.
God, this is so good.
10 seconds, and they have an amazing chemistry established.
Oh, they rule. Just the first time we watched this episode, I just instantly loved them. And just do a little side hug.
We didn't get 5 minutes into this episode, and you almost died twice.
Janaku activates his safe power, which in turn activates a car, which he uses to try and run over the cops. Twice. The cops' kaisatsu change, but in a hurry, because many cars are barreling towards them.
There was a missed opportunity here because their transformation roll call has that car in the background. Unfortunately, they didn't pose and the car just flares its headlights.
It probably wasn't in the budget, but that would be amazing.
Just Kaito Sentai. But oh no!
Hoisted by their own cars, rather. Isolab sees an opportunity to launch several tempura missiles, which launch the Pat Rangers back. The 2 friends high-five, but a voice interrupts their celebration. It's Zamigo, whose presence worries the Pat Rangers. Zamigo asks Janaku to come with him, which Isolab doesn't care for. Janaku is his best friend, and nobody can change that, except Zamigo, with his ice gun, which he uses on Isolab, killing him instantly. Everyone is shocked, most of all, Janaku, who just watched his best friend die. As the remaining Ganglars leave, Isolab shatters. So hopefully he didn't have any collection pieces on him, or the Lupin Rangers are in for a terrible surprise.
I'm trying to remember your exact reaction to this scene, because I think you did just yell, "Oh no!" Or "Oh shit!" You had something.
These poor friends torn apart by Zamigo. Truly, this is the worst thing he's done.
They do, a really dead montage, but it's just the same scene again. But it's cut up all weird.
Black and white, sad version of Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger playing.
Yeah, Sarah McLaughlin's cover of Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger.
Later, Janaku asks Zamigo what he's doing, and he tells him that the boss wants him for his collection piece. While they do their thing, the cops have returned to HQ, where they're discussing how dangerous Zamigo is. Kaichiro wonders what he wanted Janaku for, but there's no time to wonder about that. as Hilltop and Jim return from that meeting. Jim shows them footage of the collection piece in space, which the thieves are also watching. Thanks for the intel, iPad Kogure. He calls the piece Victory Striker. Everyone is concerned about how they're going to get the collection piece from space, but Kogure and Jim tell their respective groups that in 2 hours, the collection piece will be in airspace over the Yumihiki Mountains. Sakia wonders if they should contact Noelle, but Kaitro is certain that Noelle will be there either way. As they discuss Noelle, we fade cut to him, waiting with the other Phantom Thieves. Kairi observes Victory Striker's approach, at which point Umika steals his telescope from him. Been a while since we've been able to do that joke. Noelle tells them that he'll leave it in their hands because he figures the cops will arrive soon, so he's gonna be the one to deal with them instead. The thieves Kaito change, and then ride off in their Zords. But we then cut to a safe glowing green, and then to Victory Striker, whose dial also glows for a moment, before it starts firing at the Lupin Zords. Tuma wonders if there's anyone on board, but as we can see, there is not. Noelle wonders what could be going on, only to look to his side and see the answer. Noelle approaches Janaku and refers to his collection piece as El Me Rend Fo, before Kaito changing. However, before X can challenge Janaku, a hammer appears behind him, which he only barely dodges.
There is so much happening in, these 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's intense. There's 2 fights going on at the same time, and there's a lot of cutting.
There's 2 fights, and they're both, really high-stake fights. One of the VS vehicles just got stolen right from under them, and is now being used to fight them. And Destra's here.
Yeah. That's an issue on its own.
Either of these could have carried an episode, but now they're both happening. Now you both gotta deal with them.
Destra tells Janaku to leave and focus on his own job. X, of course, is concerned about Destra being a status double gold. Destra, of course, is not concerned about anything. As X struggles against Destra alone, Red manages to gain some kinda upper hand above. He manages to dock his Zord on top of Victory Striker and get inside, but finds that he still can't control the vehicle. Back down below, X is getting his head handed to him, and tries to change strategies with a Kaisatsu change. Unfortunately, this is a bad idea, as in his cop form, he lacks the power to repel Destra's attacks, and is hit twice by his hammer. A shockwave from Destra's hammer cancels X's Kaisatsu change, and he's left helpless, and quite injured. Got the blood scratch and everything. Destra moves in to finish off Noelle, but the Pat Rangers come running in. And with a triple Kaisatsu boost, they manage to launch Destra away before his hammer hits him, though they're blown back as well.
That moment was fucking incredible. This episode has so many incredible fight moments.
Yeah, it's a good fight episode.
I love just point-blank biker boost against Destra's hammer.
Yeah, you have to have 3 people shoot a damn wheel just to blow him back. Not injure him, he's fine. He's just gone now. Already fairly damaged, their transformations are also cancelled. Noelle tells the group that he didn't expect them to save him. But Kaitro tells him that no matter how suspicious he is, or how much their objectives differ, they have to save him because he's a human being. Noelle calls them wonderful officers, and that he happens to like them all as well.
I'm mad.
I specifically wrote pause for Loka in parentheses.
So I watched the TV and the home translations first because I wasn't aware of Overtime's translations. And this was the last episode I watched of TV and the home's translations because I took a break, we switched to Overtime, then I continued in Overtime. TV and the home translates Noelle's statement as, "I love you all." And it's really fucking obvious that's what it should be. Because who the hell says, "I like you all"? In this dramatic moment. Yeah, I like you. It falls so flat. It's embarrassing. And the reason I'm being so mad is because Overtime is generally my preferred translation. I think they do a better job of making the dialogue sound natural and deliverable. It's really easy to lose track when you're writing subtitles that somebody is supposed to be saying this.
Yeah.
The subtitles tend to be a little wordier. They tend to fall into the danger of you can write this, but you sure as hell can't say it. So they I don't want to say drop the ball because that implies a mistake. Like, this was a deliberate choice. They had to have known this could have been translated as love or like and went with like. And this was before Ava. This was before the Ava translation, so it wasn't a joke. It was just a bad idea.
Yep, it's just all the Pat Rangers are worthy of Noel's grace.
Over time, you do great work. You did a good job on this series, but you fucked up that line so badly that if I ever meet any of you in person, I will have to tell you. Oh yeah, I did a really good job on Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger. What the fuck was up with Noel's I like you all line?
Everyone smiles, but their attention shifts back to Destra. Who has made it back up the cliff. The cops re-kaisatsu change and begin fighting Destra, who just calls them complete idiots and then fires at them with his wrist gun. Did you not notice that Destra had wrist guns? Well, now you know. It might be easy to lose track of those given his entire design, but if you look at it, there is a spot for bullets around his wrists. That's what those are. Just a grenade that thought, Degranio's pretty rad. Now, while I normally just summarize these sections as, they fight, honorable mention goes to Ichigo, who just runs in and punches Destra in the chest. Anyway, fighting continues to happen on the ground, but in the air, Blue and Yellow manage to latch their Zords onto Victory Striker. Red notices something on the monitor inside when his partners fall in on top of him. He tells them to take over while he does something else. Everyone is surprised to see the front of Victory Striker open to reveal a trigger machine. It's a tank. Red drives it off the plane and towards the ground, and Janaku panics, not knowing which vehicle to control. He can control a bunch of jeeps, no problem, but these are probably a little bit too much to handle unless they're one at a time.
I think even in his intro scene, he only controlled one car at a time. He just wrecked them so quickly, it looked like he was controlling multiple cars.
I'm fucking up so fast that it looks like...
Get ready to get fucking Aura-Ora'd with cars.
Aura if Jotaro could only use one fist at a time. Just
if we only steal one car,
God damn it,
we'll be easily spotted. But if we steal 100 cars...
Red starts firing, which launches Janaku into X's walking range. The rest of the Pat Rangers hold back Destra, quite the feats, while X unlocks Janaku's safe, 106, and retrieves the collection piece. Blue now has control of Victory Striker, while Red steers his new tank over to the other fight happening, and starts firing at Destra. He won't be injured, of course, but while he's busy, the Pat Rangers move in and use the Refusal to Comply strike, which is a name. Cool animation, though. X then comes in with a Seizing X strike, and Janaku rolls away, exploding once he stops. The Pat Rangers then turn to the tank, which X refers to as the Siren Striker. Destra, recovering from the distracting but not otherwise dangerous volley of tank shells, curses the Rangers. And to make his day worse, Ghosh enters the scene and revives Janaku. As she leaves, Destra orders Janaku to retrieve the collection pieces and sends in a golem for good measure. Said golem almost crushes the Pat Rangers. Janaku figures he has the upper hand here, given his hands are higher up than everyone else, but surprised, Siren Striker isn't just a tank, it's also a forklift, which Red uses to launch Janaku skyward.
You could say he tries to kill him with a forklift.
Not successfully, though. But hey, the Lupin Rangers already have a vehicle up in the sky as it is. Blue and Yellow launch Magic and Splash, while Good Striker wanders in alongside Red Zord. They activate Kaito Gatime with their newer vehicles, which forms the Siren Lupin Kaiser. Janaku tries to fire at them, but all of his shots miss. Siren Kaiser nonchalantly walks forward, uses its forklift to toss up Janaku once again. They then use Splash to cover Janaku in tar, and then punch him, you guessed it, skyward, with magic. And to ensure he doesn't touch the ground again, they finish him off with the Blast Him to Smithereens cannon, which is just lasers from every vehicle, which is kinda cool, but I was hoping for more from magic, honestly. But the battle isn't over yet. The Pat Rangers are getting tossed around by the Golem, given that, they don't have Goody to form their own Kaiser. Where's Jackpot Striker when you need him? But Goody's not worried, as he says it's Noel's turn. Siren Striker is ejected from the Kaiser, and Goody tells Red to aim it at Noel and shoot, which Red does. Noel seems a little surprised to turn around and see a plastic tank flying at him at high speeds, but once it gets to him, he gets some armor. He is now Super Loop on X, in stores now. Everyone is amazed by this cool new form, which you can get for 650 yen, kids. With this new
Everyone is amazed except you.
With this new armor, X fires through Golem's projectiles, then uses a super superior strike to blow the Golem to smithereens. Wow. Buy it today, kids.
I do want to point out that when this form showed up in the next episode preview for episode 37, Fefner's reaction was, "No, what the fuck is that?"
Yep. It's fitting for him, in that it is very gaudy.
Just these two levers on his shoulders for no guy. Well, they do something, but still, like, why?
Like, you gotta make it distinct so it'll sell. Back at Jour, Kogure places yet another collection piece in his book, and he then tells them to make good use of Victory Striker. Kairi picks it up and wonders aloud what kind of power it has. Umika, though, manages to snatch it, because she learned her lesson with Magnum. Back at Police HQ, Noel looks at Siren Striker as well. He enters the office and gives everyone some macaroons from Jour. Despite the sugar, Kaitro assures Noel that this doesn't change anything. Tsukasa also mentions that if he wants to show gratitude, Intel would be nice. But Noel wouldn't do that, not that anybody's surprised. But at the very least, they are still happy. And so, with everyone getting along surprisingly well, Hilltop stands up and asks Noel where his macaroons are. A moment passes, and we get an oh la la from the group as Noel starts pacing back and forth, wondering what to do. End of episode. Alright, so that was episode 38.
There's a lot to discuss. Let's start with the Ganglar, the one that made it to the end. Well, not even the end, but made it past the 10-minute mark.
He definitely works better in his pair. The whole gag of him and Islab just being best buddies is amazing. Little disappointed that he pretty quickly goes along with Zamigo's plan. Doesn't really spend much time grieving for his friend.
I mean, Islab's, sudden tragic death is part of the joke. Part of the reason they were so good friends was because Islam was gonna fucking die in 2 minutes.
But after that, he's okay. He's still kind of funny, but...
I do really like his power, but I wish that, they had to fight in a parking garage or something. It would have been the entire season's budget.
Oh yeah, just throw
I'm
several cars.
I'm surprised they were able to afford as many cars as they did for the short sequence that was in the episode. But I wanted more with his power, because, you can stretch the definition of vehicle pretty far.
Oh no, it looks like the Pat Rangers have got me. Oh, look behind your head, it's a unicycle! I can control that too!
See, that would be amazing, though. Just here, look out! There's a street performer. Unicycle just gets thrown directly at Keiichiro's head.
You thought I needed ignition in order to use my power, but no.
Does it have to be a manned vehicle? Can he control drones?
Alright, I've got a mime. You're finished. You won't even be able to see these bikes coming.
They just fight outside of that one Gundam statue. And all of a sudden the Gundam statue turns and looks.
That would be terrifying. You're not even on the right show.
I do really like his power, but I wish that he had done more with it. Because the sequence in the opening was amazing, and I was just losing my mind the entire time we watched it. Because it is just fucking get ready. Chaos is erupting around you. Start fighting. I want an open world video game to do that. You're just walking around, all of a sudden cars start veering toward you no matter what.
It's sort of like Breath of the Wild, but, you learn to see Guardians be like, oh, I gotta avoid those. Just imagine a GTA game where you still have to, use cars, But some of the cars are just evil.
Yeah, he is a lot of fun in the first half, and he's just there in the second half. I guess we can talk a bit more about Daestra as a threat, because he's still super threatening.
Yeah, seriously.
He does leave in this episode, but he's not beaten.
No.
He's just done.
He just gets real sick of everybody's shit and just decides to cut his losses.
Yeah.
Like, theoretically, they could defeat him if they just made the good, cool Kaiser.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not even going to let them get close to that point, right now at least.
Right. It's like, in the first season of Power Rangers, which is my only other real reference for this sort of thing, the Daestra stand-in, Goldar, he was being beaten by Red in one-on-one duels by this point in the show, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that Red had to duel him unmorphed once and still managed to win. Barely win, but still won.
You could not do that with Destro.
Yeah, I don't think any of them could fight Daestra unarmed, and I don't think they could fight them armed, honestly.
All of them couldn't fight him unarmed.
Right. Even Kogure would have to just go, nah, I can't fight this guy.
You get your own intel, guys. I'm done.
So yeah, it's fun that Daestra is still just as much of a threat as he was in episode 5 or 6. I think 5.
Yeah, whenever that was. He's still a legitimate threat. People can handle him a little better in the right situation. The Pat Rangers were able to hold him off, but that's all they could do.
And yeah, sort of another thing about this episode is that a lot of people seem convinced that the Lupin Rangers stole the show. They literally stole the Zords.
Yep.
They ran off with Siren Striker.
Nobody expected Siren Striker to be in a different Zord.
But it's really hard for me to say the Power Rangers didn't do anything this episode. They fought Daestra to a standstill,
but also,
on foot.
A trigger machine. I'll steal it! No one will ever know! Sorry, I had to get that out of my system.
The problem is everyone knows. But yeah, I feel like the Power Rangers were able to do a lot in this episode. This episode did a good job of sharing screen time and character development between the two teams. But people don't want to count every individual minute, I guess, so instead they just count Zords.
Yeah, the Zords really aren't the best way to count that sort of thing.
So, you were watching Gundam at least until Fire Emblem Three Houses came out.
Look, Snapcube got a whole lot of streams up, and Watch Cartoon was down once, so I'm distracted by other things. But
I can talk a bit about something from Gundam. I don't think this is too much of a spoiler. The Char-Amuro rivalry is very well known among people. I was going to say anime fans, but it kind of escaped that a while ago, I think. And the thing about that rivalry is that the reason that they're able to, fight without killing each other at first is that Char isn't a very bad robot, and Amuro isn't a very good robot, but Char is a very bad pilot. No, Char is a very good pilot, and Amuro is a very bad pilot.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the show, it's reversed. Because Amuro never updates his Gundam, but Char keeps getting better and better mobile suits. So by the end, Amuro has grown a whole lot as a pilot and is able to hold his own against the superior mobile suit, but Char hasn't grown as much of a pilot and is only able to fight to a standstill. I think a similar thing is happening here. Because the Lupin Rangers started out with less protective suits and everything, but they're able to fight the Power Rangers because the Power Rangers have stronger suits but less training. And by this point, the Power Rangers don't need the toys because they figured out how to use their existing suits much better than the Lupin Rangers can use theirs. It's really easy to just watch the show and see it as it's less that the Lupin Rangers are getting all the cool toys and more that they need the cool toys.
That and, of course, they're the fancy ones. The kids are coming for the Phantom Thieves, so of course you're going to give them all the toys. You want them to have all the cool flashy stuff. But, as always, the Pat Rangers do seem to have their shit together, and so you have this episode where they display a very clear, not trust exactly with Noelle, they do just out and out say, we still don't trust you. You're still weird and suspicious, but we're not just going to let you die.
Yeah, it's not going to prevent us from protecting you. And it's weird that, like, people say that this episode was proof that the Power Rangers are being shafted when they get a moment like that.
Yeah, honestly.
Like, if the showrunners really were just trying to push the Power Rangers to the side as much as possible, they wouldn't have that scene. They wouldn't be fighting Destra half the episode and, like, keeping up with them.
Yeah, honestly, the Destra part of the episode was more important. Like, it does keep cutting back to the dogfight and all, but, like, not much really happens in that fight. It's just...
Yeah, you spend a lot of time talking about Destra and very little talking about the dogfight.
Yeah, like, Victory Striker starts opening fire. We get some Destra scenes. Red gets in, more Destra. Yellow and Blue get in, Destra. Well, now then the tank comes out.
So with 2 new Zords, I guess we can talk about them a bit. We've only seen one mech, but we have seen both VS vehicles as vehicles.
Yep.
It's weird that they're called Strikers.
Yeah, because Striker has a completely different meaning, or at least it did before now. You know, good striker, jackpot striker.
Yeah, they don't form the core, but they do form the chest and head. So I think maybe that was sort of what they were going for.
And I mean, like, one of them at least does have a distinction of giving the Rangers super armor, but that's still not the same thing.
Right. They could have chosen a different noun. That being said, Siren Striker is my favorite VS vehicle in the show. Because I have the toy, and the toy has a lot to it. Even just, like, as a toy, not combining with the others, it's just really cool. Mm-hmm. Like, if you can only get one, get Siren Striker. You might think, oh, I'll get Good Striker. No. If you can't get the others, don't bother with Good Striker. Get Siren Striker, it's more of a complete toy on its own. That being said, whenever you add it to Good Striker, it gets you like 5 more guns. It's great. Victory Striker is neat, but it's a lot less interesting.
Yeah, it didn't really do much in this one. It was just a space blimp, came down, shot the original Lupin Zords for a bit. Then a tank came out of it.
Yeah, because like Siren Striker, it's, you know, forklift unfolds, the cannon can move. It can do a lot in its vehicle form. The Victory Striker just opens up the canopy,
yep.
And that's it.
For an episode dedicated to Victory Striker doesn't do much.
Right, I do like Victory Striker's design.
Yep.
So I point out that the 2 Strikers have Kairi and Keiichiro's color schemes. Siren Striker looks a lot like Keiichiro's police uniform. Mm-hmm. The dark blue with red and white highlights. So yeah, they're cool, but Siren Striker is a lot better. Alright, so we talked about the Ganglar, we talked about the VS vehicles, I ranted about the fan base for the 1000th time.
Not much to talk about theme-wise in the episode. It's a nice episode, you know.
Yeah, and there is the whole... The Pot Rangers are protecting Noelle because they have to, it's their job. Mm-hmm. So much, like, media about the police is about them bending the rules and, like, not wanting to protect everyone. So having these 2 are just like, the rules are the rules and we have to protect you no matter what our personal feelings are, is, like, really good.
Yeah.
It's super unrealistic, but everything in the show is unrealistic.
Well, that's how it is with fictional cops. Either it's very idealistic and therefore unrealistic, or it's just fucking America's garbage cop shows about, I'm a loose cannon cop and I don't play by the rules.
Yeah, I guess if you're going to glorify a type of officer, glorify the one that follows the rules and protects everyone, even the people they don't like, and don't make protecting the people they don't like a bad thing, because that is the major part of this episode. The Power Rangers protecting Noelle is a good thing, both in their eyes and the audience's eyes.
Yep.
Everyone who's ever written a cop show sucks. I'm not counting this as a cop show, because fucking look at it, come on. This is a cop show, the same way that Superman the Animated Series was a news reporter show. But anyways, I believe that does it for this episode. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we are at LRVSPR, Fefner's FFner Masamune. If you want to email us, you can email us at LupinRecap via PatReview@gmail.com. And we will see you in the next episode. Adieu.